morning, folks, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. This show is brought to you by the Atheist community of Austin. I'm your host, Jeff D. My co-host is Martin Wagner, and our guest today is Paul Wilson, professor at UT.
Morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you. We are live. I see. I've got my spiel all written down. Now you interrupted me.
I'm sorry.
I'm all off kilter.
I didn't mean to do that.
Normally does our introduction, but we're having microphone problems today.
I didn't mean to do that.
We are live. You did fine.
All right.
We are live April 23.
In case you couldn't tell, it was live.
2000 CE. There you go, Ray.
All right.
The Atheist Community of Austin is a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings Sunday mornings at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop, 307 West 5th Street at 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month, when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. at Furs Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. Our next lecture will be taking place on May 7. Do you happen to know offhand who the...
Samantha Smoot.
Samantha Smoot.
Yes.
Texas Freedom Network.
Texas
Right.
Freedom Network.
And the Texas Freedom Network is a church-state separation organization.
I believe so, yeah.
Non-partisan. It tends to be theistic in nature. Is that not
Right. I
correct?
believe that most of the members of the Texas Freedom Network are from the mainstream churches and Jews and so on.
Okay.
So they're basically in favor of church-state separation to
That'll
protect
be interesting.
religion from
Yeah.
government.
I'm sure she'll fill in all the details that I don't know.
Right.
ACA board meetings take place at noon right after our regular meeting on the second Sunday of every month. These meetings are open to all ACA members, but you can only vote if you're on the board of directors. The next board meeting will be on May 14. The Godless Gamers meet every Monday night at 7 p.m. at the home of Vic Farrow. And for more information, you can call our voicemail at 371-2911 or visit our website at www.atheist-community.org. This show can also be seen on the internet. Set your browser to spring.net and tell your faraway friends and relatives and associates so they can too. All right. Got that out of the way.
Oh, here we are.
How is everybody this morning?
Well,
A little under the weather.
You've been not well,
Right.
and you were up really late.
yeah, since I'm working, you know,
So I'm just Mr. Perky today.
yeah, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to. I'm supposed to be the one who's discombobulated this morning, and I
But you're mellow, see,
I
and that
threw you
helps.
off with a single greeting, so did not mean to do that.
Everything's fine.
So doing my Ed McMahon thing. So.
You want to do some news?
Yes, I will do the news this morning. Happy Resurrected Rabbit Day, guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
That's
that
right.
holiday.
Yeah,
Got to nail that bunny to a cross.
that's right. So,
Everybody go find your hidden chocolate eggs.
that's right. But that's really of the least possible interest to us. The news this week, it's a light news week, and that works out just as well. I was watching the tape of last week's show, and I'm sorry, we did have just a little bit, a little heavy on the news side, I suppose. So a little too much going on there. Sorry, didn't
We're
mean
always
for it to.
improving.
Yeah, didn't mean for it to last that long. Well, you get so easily tricked. You know, you download these news articles from the internet, and they take about a page and a half to print.
Anything, it'll be so fast.
Yeah, that'll take 2 minutes to read. It ends up taking 8 or 9.
We're going to be so tired of
Yeah.
just the whole news job in a few months. I certainly was when
Oh,
I was
yeah.
in the co-host chair.
And because we're constantly interrupting ourselves and making our completely unbiased editorial remarks, you know, pertaining to each article, as we're doing now. So, you know, it's... But today
You're
is...
saying I'm interrupting you now. Is what you're
No,
saying.
I'm saying we're just sitting and chatting about nothing in particular,
All right.
which is what makes this show so fun.
Yeah.
But just have
Particular.
3 news items this week, and a lot of them are science pieces, so let's get right to it. Here's a piece from, this was actually on the front page of Friday's Statesman, and in the case you didn't see it, I will just give you the general gist of it. Early humans spoke in baby talk, not grunts, new UT study finds. So apparently the early hominids were not only incredibly resourceful guys, but they were cute. So
How do they know this?
well, these are, you know, once again, this is theorizing, but here we go. Forget the caveman movies, it says, that show hairy Homo sapiens communicating in macho grunts. It seems our ancestors babbled like babies. That's the conclusion of 2 University of Texas researchers in a peer-reviewed research paper that appears in today's issue of the journal Science. Early indications are that the paper is provocative. Yeah, well, sure it would be.
Could get those Neanderthals up in arms.
Their work on the origins...
The adult baby fetishists will be excited.
Yeah, that's right. Their work on the origins of speech challenges long-held beliefs that humans acquired speech because of speech-specific genes. Instead, speaking came about because of simple body mechanics such as opening and closing the mouth and positioning the tongue. It contrasts with this theory of Noam Chomsky, the greatest linguist of the 20th century, who believes we got special human genes to pattern speech, said Peter McNeagle. What we're saying is, when humans started using words, they just needed to borrow capabilities they already had, rather than invent something entirely new. Researchers not connected with the work said it could provide a new piece to the evolutionary puzzle, and also could be used to identify hearing or speech speech problems in infants who don't babble normally. Now, how do you distinguish between normal babbling and abnormal babbling? Babbling is babbling. I mean, yeah. Now that's normal babbling. Now Arlo, give us that.
I didn't kill the mastodon.
Okay, it will help us understand the development of language in children, they say, and will help us understand the disorders of language, said Merlin Donald, a psychology professor at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. It's one of the critical questions about our human nature. Noam Chomsky, a Massachusetts Institute technology professor who was once called the most important intellectual alive. Well,
He's been called that more than once.
Yeah, that's a heavy thing to live up to. Every time someone says that, he must just go, or maybe just...
I'm extremely jealous.
Yes.
He is the most cited academic in the world by far.
Anyway, Chomsky said he hadn't seen the research paper, but didn't think much of what he had learned of it. This is what I said as a student 50 years ago, Chomsky said. This isn't even serious science. An associate who co-authored The Sound Pattern of English with Chomsky, linguist Maurice Halley, also dismissed the new theory. Language isn't in the mouth, it's in the head, Halley said. Dogs have mouths, cats have mouths, and pigs have mouths. And they make all kinds of that sounds like a Sesame Street song. Yeah. And they make all kinds of noises. Pigs go oink oink. Only human beings can speak because they have words. The average person knows 50,000 words, Halley said. There must be something in your head to make it possible that you can learn that many. The reason is genetics. McNeagle countered that genes aren't necessary to make the mouth open and close. Early humans used their mouths to chew food. Well, it depends on how tight your genes are, I suppose. Anyway, early humans used their mouths to chew food. They also used their mouths to develop words. They didn't suddenly acquire speech because of a genetic mutation, he said. Words, McNeagle said, are developed by cultural agreement on what sound pattern goes with what concept. So the choice of sound patterns is dictated by the mouth capabilities, and once the choice is made, the mental conception is formed. And it just goes on from there. So this is what science is all about, you know. Someone invents a theory, there's lots of arguments.
Cool, it's, you know,
yeah. I actually read that article and was not terribly impressed either with the theory or the reporting.
No, well, but it's interesting that, you know, now there's just this, but, you know, the debate is what is fascinating, and this should...
I think it's definitely an interesting issue. One of the things that's going on is there's a fair amount of controversy these days about early humans, early modern humans, and Neanderthals. Mm-hmm. And for example, were Neanderthals a separate species that we wiped out, or did they basically get assimilated when the modern humans went into Europe? Mm-hmm. And there's all these weird arguments about throat structure and could these people speak and did they have symbolic representations of things. And there's a lot of evidence these days that, well, yes, in fact, they did have symbolic representations and they were much more advanced than we think. And when we went and offed them, or whatever it is we did with them, they were probably fairly advanced. And so it's a very interesting thing, but I don't know what to make of that article.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's really generating a lot of heat, and as it should, you know. Anyway, on to more science. A landmark dinosaur discovery makes hearts skip a beat. I did see this when it was published in the Statesman the same day, but I couldn't find it when I went back to look for this one for some odd reason. So, thanks for finding it for me, Jeff.
My friend Dennis, who has been on the show, emails me interesting science stuff all the time.
Yeah,
it makes my life easier.
And it starts out in the increasingly Disney-fied world of paleontology. Just want to cut in here. Have you seen the trailers for Dinosaurs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I admire the technical expertise of getting those big, realistic-looking dinosaurs to move around. but I'm just not that interested in the story about the love monkey.
Oh, yeah.
If you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's Disney, you know.
Yeah.
So it'll look awful pretty if nothing else.
Yeah.
In the increasingly Disney-fied world of paleontology, it doesn't take a whole lot to get people excited. Kind of like religion, I guess. And Thursday...
Big lizards.
Yeah. Be like, ooh. So...
Go on. You're just silly this morning.
I tell you. It's that rabbit thing. And Thursday, a piece of news emerged that thrilled even the most unscientific corners of society. Well, that could have been anything, but apparently it was this.
Probably not the most unscientific members of society.
No.
They're probably not too thrilled.
No. Effectively negating years of pessimism over the chances of ever finding one, researchers at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences in Raleigh have uncovered the softball-sized remains of a heart inside the fossilized skeletons of one of their dinosaurs. And what a find it is. The Thescelosaurus pumper, which may be the first dinosaur heart ever seen by human eyes, is decidedly unreptilian. It's divided into 4 chambers and fed by a single aorta. This structure, scientists explain, suggests that the dinosaur in question was warm-blooded, like birds and mammals, rather than cold-blooded, like snakes and lizards. So it's more in support of the bird.
Yeah. And it's another nail in the coffin of that stupid-ass creationist theory that dinosaurs are just lizards that got really, really old and kept growing the whole time.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one, but it's no less dumb than anything else. Well, this is a major development, says Time senior writer Frederick Golden, particularly in light of the public's fascination with all things dinosaur. Anything that advances our understanding of these marvelous creatures is bound to be met with a great deal of excitement, he says. And it doesn't hurt that this particular find feeds into one of the most vigorous debates surrounding our prehistoric friends, the all-important distinction between warm blood and cold blood. There has been a long-standing controversy over dinosaurs' place in the evolutionary family tree. Some scientists maintain the giant lizards were the ancestors of modern birds, while others believe they predated today's cold-blooded reptiles. This heart, explains Golden, could lend indisputable weight to the theory that most or all dinosaurs had warm blood coursing through their veins because it was found in an animal known to be a vegetarian, which were once thought to be exclusively cold-blooded. Very interesting. So, but how did they have this?
Vegetarians are supposed to be exclusively cold-blooded?
Vegetarian reptiles, I think.
Vegetarian
reptiles.
Okay.
Because cows
Right, they're...
No.
are warm-blooded.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, must mean reptiles are. Anyway, interesting.
The idea is they're more like cows in some ways than they're like Komodo dragons or something.
Prehistoric cows. I think Farside dealt with that pretty handily, so we can move on.
Really ugly cows.
Yeah. Okay, on to our final news article. Article. I can say the word article, even though I've only had 3 hours of sleep, so we're fine. Oh, Jeff, guess what we haven't done on the show in a long time?
Rapture report?
Well, we did that last week. No. Some good old-fashioned Jerry Falwell bashing.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Well, seeing as how old Jerry's trying to get his name back in the news, I thought, no time like the present.
It's about damn time.
Oh, yeah, but touch briefly on the salient points of this article. Falwell back in the fray with new political effort. Just got to get those news cameras his direction. Years after declaring that he was abandoning politics on behalf of saving souls, controversial televangelist Jerry Falwell has jumped back into the arena and announced that he is launching an all-out effort to register 10 million voters. Quote, I don't think religious conservatives have lost any of their power, Falwell told reporters at a press conference late last week. I think they've lost their enthusiasm. The controversial evangelist and head of one of the, there's that word again, controversy.
Yeah.
Let's all sing. No, let's not. The controversial evangelist and head of one of the early religious right political action groups Moral Majority added that his People of Faith 2000 initiative would work closely with local pastors and solicit nearly $19 million in contributions to operate.
Now, the People of Faith 2000, that's not like how many of them there are, is it?
Well, could be. We'll see. Critics quickly compared the Falwell plan to other efforts to use churches as political fronts. Ellen Johnson, president of American Atheist, said that while local congregations may conduct get-out-the-vote drives or try to register voters, the activities must be nonpartisan and not endorse a particular candidate. Everyone knows what's really going on here, Johnson warned. Falwell is using this as a way of recapturing his influence within the Republican Party and to make sure that George W. Bush toes the line on issues like abortion and gay rights. When Republicans lost their bid for the White House 4 years ago, Falwell was one of a number of religious conservatives who believed that Christian fundamentalists and evangelicals had lost their way in the quest for political power. Falwell announced that he was trading in the political stump circuit to return to his first preoccupation of preaching and saving souls. So, you save enough souls, do you get like a special discount at the supermarket or something? Whatever. And similar views were put forth by columnist Cal Thomas, who frequently has espoused the religious right social agenda. In books, speeches, and opinion columns, Thomas has joined Falwell in warning of the pitfalls of the political process. Skip.
Right back at it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Falwell was swept up in the endless round of conspiracy theorizing about President Clinton. He co-financed and distributed a bizarre documentary, The Clinton Chronicles, and according to Salon magazine, covertly paid $200,000 to people making damaging allegations about the president's behavior in exchange for their dubious information. Appearing desperate to remain in the public eye, Falwell announced in late January of this year that he was suing the White House over an alleged secret database of anti-abortion and pro-life religious activists. And it just goes on from there. Now, just since he hasn't been, poor guy, in the news for so long, I thought, it's might be a fun idea to just briefly go down the list of, shall we say, Jerry Falwell's greatest hits.
All right.
His history of...
Just a reminder, for those of you who have forgotten all about him in his 5 years not being involved in politics. Good idea.
Yeah. And ACA is a non-profit educational organization. So
Sure, this is educational.
Let's do some educating. But it must be said, first off, just a disclaimer, our show, granted, we do a lot of criticizing and mocking of various religious faiths and belief systems. Hey, we're atheists. But,
Showtime!
Ordinarily, we don't make a habit of wanting to get on and single out a particular individual and attack him personally. But having said that,
it's Jerry Falwell.
Jerry Falwell is a freaking moron. And just in case you'd like to know how moronic he is, well, here we are. We're just going to go down a short list. This is not all of it. I have cut it for time. You'll be happy to know. So,
where did you get this short list?
This I linked to it from Internet Infidels.
Okay.
And it just goes down. So let's look at it, shall we? From the moral majority to Tinky Winky, a short history of the Falwell Follies. May 1979. Falwell, a TV preacher and independent Baptist pastor in Lynchburg, Virginia, is recruited by far-right activists Howard Phillips, Ed McAteer, and Paul Weyrich to form and lead the Moral Majority, a vehicle for bringing fundamentalist Protestants into the Republican Party with the aim of unseating President Jimmy Carter. 1980 to 81. After the election of Ronald Reagan, the Moral Majority begins advocating for constitutional amendments banning abortion and restoring school-sponsored prayer. The group also demands government aid to private religious education. September 1982, Falwell announces a drive to register 1 million new voters before the November election. July 1984, Falwell is forced to pay gay activist Jerry Sloan $5,000 after losing a court battle. During a TV debate in Sacramento, Falwell denied calling the gay-oriented metropolitan community churches, quote, brute beasts, and, quote, a vile and satanic system that will one day be utterly annihilated and there will be a celebration in heaven.
He denied saying this?
Yes. When Sloan insisted he had a tape, Falwell promised $5,000 if he could produce it. Sloan did. Falwell refused to pay, and Sloan successfully sued. Falwell appealed, with his attorney charging that the Jewish judge in the case was prejudiced. He lost again.
It either exists or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He lost again and was forced to pay an additional $2,875 in sanctions and court fees. November 1984. Reports from the Federal Election Commission indicate that Falwell's I Love America Committee, a political action committee formed in 1983, was a flop. The PAC raised $485,000 in its first year, but spent $413,000 to do so.
But Jerry got a lot of nice vacations.
Oh, betcha. May 1985, Falwell apologizes to a Jewish group for seeking a Christian America. From now on, he says he will use the term Judeo-Christian. Skip to February 1988. The U.S. Supreme Court strikes down a $200,000 jury award to Falwell for emotional distress he said he suffered because of a Hustler magazine parody. Chief Justice William H. Rehnquist, usually a Falwell favorite, wrote the unanimous opinion in Hustler versus Falwell, ruling that the First Amendment protected the parody. Skip to February 1993. The Internal Revenue Service determines that funds from Falwell's Old Time Gospel Hour program were illegally funneled to a political action committee. The IRS forced Falwell to pay $50,000 and revoked the Old Time Gospel Hour's tax-exempt status for 1986-87. March 1993, despite his promise to Jewish groups to stop referring to America as a Christian nation, Falwell gives a sermon saying, quote, "We must never allow our children to forget that this is a Christian nation. We must take back what is rightfully ours." Skip to 1994, 1995. Oh, yeah. We haven't even gotten to the good ones yet. Falwell is criticized for using his old-time gospel hour to hawk a scurrilous video called The Clinton Chronicles that makes a number of unsubstantiated charges against President Bill Clinton, among them that he is a drug addict and that he arranged the murders of political enemies in Arkansas. Despite claims he had no ties to the project, evidence was later found that Falwell helped bankroll the venture with $200,000 paid to a group called Citizens for Honest Government. I tell you,
That's a lot of face.
I don't know what planet this guy lives on, but it's just strange.
And there was that tape. We played a tape on the show here. Maybe we need to dig that up and show it again sometime.
Yeah.
Of Falwell ranting about how there are real demons and they're really moving amongst us and they come from the real flaming pits of hell.
Guy needs his Librium or something.
Right.
I think he's compelling evidence that's true.
Yeah, well.
Basically, what I do is I put on a show. I consider myself an entertainer first and a false prophet second.
Oh, onward we go. April 1996, Falwell hosts a Washington for Jesus rally. In the nation's capital where he holds a mock trial of America for engaging in 7 deadly sins: persecution of the church, homosexuality, abortion, racism, occultism, addictions, and HIV/AIDS. And in case you weren't paying attention, that forms an acronym that spells Pharaoh. He declares he declares the nation guilty of violating God's law. Skip to August 1997. It just goes on. Falwell pleads for funds for a new group, the National Committee for the Restoration of the Judeo-Christian Ethic. In a fundraising letter, he promises to get back in the ring and be a spiritual George Foreman. He promises to register 4 million new voters and mobilize 50,000 pastors. After publishing a couple of fundraising letters, the group is never heard from again.
Did he get his money?
No, he doesn't say.
Great.
November 1997. Now this one's interesting. Falwell pleads for funds for a new... No, I'm sorry. I had a brain fart there. Falwell, here we are, accepts a $3.5 million from a front group representing controversial Korean evangelist Sun Myung Moon to ease Liberty University's financial woes. That's his college. The donation and several Falwell appearances at Moon conferences raised eyebrows because Moon claims to be the Messiah sent to complete the failed mission of Jesus Christ. A doctrine sharply at odds with Falwell's fundamentalist Christian theology. Yeah, that one's weird. April 1998, confronted on national television with a controversial quote from America Can Be Saved, a published collection of his sermons, Falwell denies having written the book. In the 1979 book, Falwell wrote, quote, "I hope to live to see the day when, as in the early days of our country, we won't have any public schools. The churches will have taken them over again and Christians will be running them. What a happy day that will be." Despite Falwell's denial, the book's publisher confirms that Falwell wrote the book. Boy, January...
He'll just say whatever he needs to say
to cover his...
to whatever group he happens to be talking to at the moment.
To cover his
broad
broad posterior.
and get his money.
Yeah, I tell you. Second to last one, January 1999. Falwell tells a pastor's conference in Kingsport, Tennessee that the Antichrist prophesied in the Bible is alive today and, quote, "of course, he'll be Jewish." And February 1999, I guess his last one, Falwell becomes the object of nationwide ridicule after his National Liberty Journal newspaper issues a parents' alert warning that Tinky Winky, a character on the popular PBS children's show Teletubbies, might be gay.
Oh, boy.
Tell you. I'll grant you, Teletubbies is weird, okay, but come on. I mean, whatever. So,
Boy.
That is just a brief rundown of the follies of Jerry Falwell, bunghole extraordinaire. So,
Whoa,
over to you, Mr. D.
that was a little strong.
Well, you know, someone's got to say it. And
In the interest, I have announcements, but in the interest of spreading the wealth around a little bit.
oh yeah,
I may have read this on the show before, but I'm a frequent poster and reader of the Atheism news group on the internet.
right.
And one of the things that happens on that news group is there's a volunteer who compiles the Theist quotes of the month. These are the things said by Christians or believers in various gods who come into alt-atheism to try to convince atheists to believe. And I'm just gonna read a bunch of these. Each of these was the thing elected that was the most impressive display of Christian thinking.
So to speak.
That month. Stop living primarily through dependence on thought.
Okay.
That's in all caps.
Okay. All right.
I've always kept up with the latest in science, fascinated by the often erroneous conclusions created by the circular reasoning of their assumption that God did not create the universe.
Did he follow up on anything with that, or just
And there are no context for these. I'm sorry, these are just quotes of the month.
just idiocy, free floating? Okay.
I'm not interested in thinking for myself. I want to think as Jesus thinks.
Oh boy.
I'm not out here to amaze everybody with my intelligence. See, I used to be an intellectual, but I quit. You can too.
That's a good one. All right.
Being a believer in Jesus Christ takes no intelligence whatsoever.
I would agree with that one.
These
actually.
are said by Christians
right.
to try to convince atheists that we ought to believe.
And they would know. Yeah.
I serve God because he gives life, hope, love, and joy. Even if God truly was a fake, I wouldn't want to stop serving him. Perhaps I do make Christianity look stupid. God, this is one of my favorites. God has commanded many of his children to kill in the scriptures, but when they are led by the Spirit, this is not an act of hate. This is an act of love.
Let that be a warning to you all.
Wowzers. Okay.
If it has been divinely revealed to you that there is no God, then your atheism makes sense. Alrighty. Plagues are good, and God knows this. Without them, he couldn't teach us how to stop them.
Yeah, that's like the minister who spoke at the cafeteria and said sometimes evil can be good because it teaches us about, you know, what a bad thing evil is. So that's why God sends Nazis to murder people. And
Yeah,
so
amazing, huh?
just, you know, they won't let go of it.
Paul, you got anything you want to read into the record before we start taking calls?
Well,
Not yet. I'm just sort of.
Please, we are
leafing
live. It is Sunday the 23rd. Mm-hmm. Our number there is on the screen. If you want to call in and chat with us. For those of you watching the internet, I'll read it aloud. Area code 512-472-2255. Did you have a...
yeah.
Well,
I can go into announcements.
Oh, go ahead. Do announcements.
I'll do announcements. I didn't mention this last week, but this here's a new banner.
Yay.
Can you get a shot of the banner on camera too?
Let's see.
It's much like the old banner, but it's very nice. And we want to thank Rodney Florence for his efforts in getting that taken care of.
Yay. And it made its proud debut at the Safe Walk.
Yes, it did, and I have a little thing about that. A dozen, actually, I think it came to 13.
Something like that.
A nice Last Supper's worth of atheists.
Or 13.
Marched in the 13th annual walk for safe families and safe streets last week, raising over $200. I'm not sure of the exact amount for that worthy cause. However, in spite of our active efforts on behalf of this local charity, one Christian in the march still couldn't restrain herself from expressing her opinion that what we really all needed to do was bow down and scrape to her God.
Yeah, I saw that.
American Atheists Convention this weekend, and I need to apologize to American Atheists. I've had this story for a while, but I have been less than scrupulous in going back over my emails and collecting all this stuff. So this is too late for anybody to go there if they wanted to. But The 26th National Convention for American Atheists, April 21 to 23, making this the last day of it, in San Francisco is being streamed live on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
There will be streaming video and audio coverage of most convention events, including speakers and the annual membership banquet. Visitors can find more information by logging on to the American Atheists website at www.atheists.org/convention. Speakers include Wendy Kaminer, social critic, editor, author of Sleeping with the Extraterrestrials, The Rise of Irrationalism and the Perils of Piety, which I reviewed right here on the show. Douglas Adams, award-winning novelist, author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and other works.
How
and
fun.
Brilliant dude. Key Davidson, science reporter for the San Francisco Examiner, author of the new biography on astronomer Carl Sagan. Anne Stone, children's book author, speaking on Living in the Light, Freeing Your Child from the Dark Ages. James G. Dwyer, author of Religious Schools versus Children's Rights from Cornell University Press. Reverend Chris Harper, satirist and deacon of Landover Baptist Church, which is a parody Christian site on the internet.
Oh, okay.
David Seaborg, evolutionary biologist and president of the Rainforest Fund. In addition, the National Convention will include the annual Life Members Dinner and the Membership Dinner and Awards Banquet, where American Atheists recognizes those who in the past year have made outstanding contributions to atheist activism and the separation of church and state.
Good.
Again, that URL for streaming video, if you want to check out what's happening at their convention, is www.atheists.org/convention.
Oh, I bet it's fun. But they're having a good time.
The next blood drive for the ACA will be on April 29 at the Regional Blood Center on North Lamar. I don't have the exact address here. For all of these things, if you don't have a chance to take notes, you can call our voicemail to get further information. The voicemail number is 512-371-2911. If you can read it behind that.
Yeah, what are you guys doing? Playing with the...
Yeah, that's not terribly legible, kids.
Guys, what? Yeah.
That's our Easter colors.
Oh, it's our Easter colors.
Oh, okay.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. So we're going to wandering the studio finding eggs today. Yeah.
Trying to find things to
Little tidbits of wisdom.
We want to issue a special invitation to angry Christians out there who are annoyed at our audacity at talking about our lack of belief in God on one of your holy days.
Well, actually, you know, we might...
Because we usually get those.
We might get that, but we actually might not get that, because today is the one day that most Christians actually go to church. You know, like the...
Oh, there's got to be some of you at home watching TV and seeing this and just fuming.
Just won't admit it.
There will be an unscheduled TV committee meeting on April 30, either at the studio, that's next Sunday, either at the studio if we actually have studio space, or at the bagel shop if not. Which reminds me, when a month has 5 Sundays like this one, we generally get bumped from the studio and have to run tape. So probably next Sunday will be a tape. I haven't heard otherwise. Sometimes we're still able to get the studio space and then we're live.
Okay. So when will we... I haven't... not until we're there? Or?
What?
When will we know?
We're going to find out after the show today.
Oh, okay.
But in either case, the TV committee meeting will happen either here at the studio, if we have the studio, or at the bagel shop afterward, if not.
Okay.
The Anniversary International Conference for the Council for Secular Humanism, entitled Imagine There's No Heaven, A Future Without Religion, takes place on May 4 to 7 of this year. And I'll quickly go through this. I've read this announcement a number of times. I'm just going to list the names of the speakers. Dr. Taslima Nasrin, Jared Diamond, Dr. Jill Tarter, Dr. Paul Kurtz. That's Jill...
That's Jared Diamond's one of his latest books.
Guns, Germs, and Steel. Okay.
Excellent book, won the Pulitzer Prize.
Well, Paul Kurtz, Steve Allen, yes, that's Steve Allen.
Yay.
Alan Cranston, former U.S. Senator, E.O. Wilson,
Yay.
And William B. Davis, the guy who plays the cigarette-smoking man on The X-Files, who happens to be a lifelong skeptic and atheist.
That'll be fun.
Here's a new announcement. FACT, the Free Thought Association of Central Texas, is to celebrate Ingersoll's birthday early this year. FACT's annual Ingersoll celebration will take place on May 13 in the town park in Comfort, Texas. The memorable Robert Ingersoll, who of course nobody remembers because his works have been suppressed, was born and died in August, but FACT organizers, no bunch of dummies, know that August in Texas is no time to be out in the heat.
Yeah.
Enjoy great May weather while celebrating the life and works of this outspoken non-believer. The park, which is still home to the Atheist Rock, is located on Highway 27, just a few miles southeast of Kerrville, and off of IH-10 northwest of Burn. Burn. Festivities will begin at 11 a.m. FACT President Don Lawrence, an occasional guest on this very show, will be the MC. Bring your favorite Ingersoll quotation to read in the Atheist read-around. After the frivolities, lunch will be taken at the barbecue place by the park. For more details or directions, call Sally Chiswick at 210-656-3796. Atheist duds and dogs encouraged. If you haven't yet visited the controversial Free Thought Rock in Comfort, this is your last chance. Last year, about 30 of us gathered there for festivities, socializing lunch, and some shopping in Comfort's antique tourist stores. The Atheist Rock is it's actually a monument to the memory of free thinkers from that town.
That's right.
Who were killed for refusing to side with the South during the Civil War.
Oh, okay.
And by free thinkers, folks, yes, that means the vast majority of them did not believe in a god of any kind.
Yeah.
Once the locals in the town, which is now a hotbed of conservative religionism, found out that this monument was for a bunch of people who didn't believe in their god, they got all riled up, and they have blocked efforts to complete the monument. So there's no plaque on it. It's just this big rock.
Well, we should just slip
Luckily,
out there and do it at
it's
night.
just too damn expensive for them to move, and so it still sits there. And we know what it is and what it stands for. I want to mention again, I love working on the show, because I get recognized. Do you ever get recognized?
I haven't gotten recognized
You
yet.
will. You will. Once you've
I
been on the show long enough. Twice this last week.
Actually.
What's that?
You're a star.
I'm not a star, but I'm just glad people are watching the show.
Yeah.
Outside the On the Border restaurant in the Arboretum,
Oh, okay.
I got recognized this last week, and coming out of the Gateway Cinema. So those of you who are the ones
Twice.
that recognized me, yay you.
Okay. I haven't been recognized yet.
We have a caller. Let's take it.
Yeah, Ed on 2.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
fine.
How are you?
Pretty good. I just want to say, first of all, Jeff, I'm not a Christian, so...
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we don't assume that people are.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
We tend
I've
to give
called
people the
before.
benefit of the doubt.
I've called before. I was just going to say, if they knew you like I did, they'd be terrified to call in, especially after hearing you.
Oh.
But,
Oh, what did I do to you?
oh, nothing to me.
Okay.
I've just, I've seen you go off, so...
Yeah.
We try to keep him under control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm in a real
I
good
was-
mood today.
I was going to ask you about, yesterday I was driving in, over on Airport. There were some people standing on the corner that says, and they had signs that said, put prayer back in. And I thought that was really strange, because it's perfectly legal to pray in school, isn't it? Just not as...
On your own.
They were by the
Right.
airport?
By Airport Boulevard or the new airport?
It was at Airport and Highway 290. And
Is
there
there
were
a school
actually...
there?
I'm sorry?
Is there a school there? I mean, what?
No, there's no school. It was just
It's not
on the
terribly
street
clear where
corner.
they want that prayer to be back in.
Yeah, and then on the other side it said something similar, and then it said honk if you agree. There was a woman there, and I was kind of offended by that, but I wanted to roll down the window and say, you can pray in school, can't you? Isn't that the point? So,
Yeah.
I
There have been cases where the rules about that have been overextended, where people have gone too far and denied children their fair religious rights. But those are misinterpretations of the law. They're trying to overturn the law on the basis of a handful of accidents.
right.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
individual students have the right to just drop to the knees and
Exactly.
pray till
That's
they're
why
blue in the
I thought-
face.
Right, that's why I thought the sign was,
it-
incorrect.
Probably not during jumping jacks.
Yeah.
Gym class.
Right.
Yeah, but it can't, prayers cannot be sponsored by the school. They can't be right
Exactly.
over the loudspeaker. It can't be on the taxpayer's dime, basically.
Exactly. And my point is there's all kinds of prayer going on in school.
Well,
I don't know what they want.
As the joke goes, as long as there are finals, there will be prayer in school.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's not the individual students' liberties. They're trying to spin this with all sorts of non-believer rhetoric that, oh, this is just all the evil atheists who want to take away our, students' rights to pray. No, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's making sure that the laws of the land set down in the Constitution are clear, that the government must remain entirely neutral in the matter of which specific sectarian belief system, is dealt with. We are here. This is a country that is all about the freedom to choose, and that
Right.
chooses your faith. And so, if you have a public school, taxpayer-funded school, in which Christian prayers or Jewish prayers or Muslim prayers are being read over the loudspeaker, and other prayers are not, then that is unfair.
Right. I understand that, and I believe in that. But my point is if I was going to hold a sign that said that,
Yeah.
I'd want to understand exactly what that means. I mean, there is prayer in school. They have the freedom to pray in school.
Right.
Not
What it
over the
means,
loudspeaker.
in their case, what it means is organized, state-sponsored prayers.
Right.
That's
right.
that is what they want. That's what we don't have right now officially. Though
Right.
there are places that are violating the Constitution and going right ahead and doing that stuff.
Yeah, and see, but I think that what they should do is say that on their sign. Their sign does not say that. Their sign says, put prayer back in school. Prayer
Well, you have to
Because
understand-
because it is not in their interest to recognize
Exactly.
that. It is not in their interest.
Exactly.
It is in their interest to pretend that a few misinterpretations of the separation of church and state that denied kids the freedom to pray, in their
Right.
time at school.
Well, my point
It is in their interest to pretend that those represent what the Constitution or what the interpretation of separation of church and state really is. Okay.
Right.
As long as they can convince people that that's what it means, they can get people on their side.
Right. Well, I noticed that one of them was very young, probably about 15 or 16, so he was probably pretty easy to convince. And
Yeah, well,
You'd be surprised.
In the interest of fomenting controversy,
Yeah.
controversy.
I'd sort of like to take an extreme view, and I think kids shouldn't be allowed to pray in school. After all, it says in the Bible you're not supposed to pray in public, that's the mark of a hypocrite.
Well, actually, though, that's one of the Bible's many contradictions.
You know what's
Right.
funny about
Yeah.
that? Do you mind if I segue on that one point just
Well,
for
it
a second?
depends. Oh, go ahead.
I was reading Alt Atheism, and somebody brought up that very thing about don't pray in public as the hypocrites do, and this Christian chimed in and said, "Oh no, that doesn't say you're not supposed to pray in public.
It says
That
you're not
says
supposed to do it
you're
like a
not
hypocrite."
supposed to be. You're not supposed to pray like the hypocrites do in public." So apparently, by that interpretation, it's perfectly okay to pray hypocritically in private.
right. Well, I believe in their, right to pray. If they want to pray over their food, fine. Just don't drag me into it. But
Into their food.
Well,
the only way to be
I think-
sure.
but there's-
sorry. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I think there's something special about kids in school. Kids in school are basically captive, and they are at the mercy of other kids in school. And I think that when people go around praying in the schools, even if it's not a state-sponsored thing, it's just the majority gets to impose their view on the minority.
Right.
That this is a form of oppression that's not okay.
Yeah.
And for example, I have a friend who has a daughter in public school who has been told she's going to burn in hell. And I don't think it's okay to go around telling defenseless kids that if they don't get with the program, they're going to burn in hell forever. And if people were standing up saying, well, because you're black, I think you deserve to be tortured forever, then this would probably not be considered acceptable conduct in a public school, even if it wasn't a teacher or administrator doing it. But when somebody stands up and says, because you're not a Christian, you're going to be tortured forever, and you deserve it,
right.
that's rather offensive, and I think that's going way beyond what people ought to be allowed to do in a public
Yeah.
school.
There's all.
I hate to be threatened with stuff like that, and it happens a lot, actually, and they just think nothing of it. you
Yeah, I know.
It's like, excuse me, but I'm a Christian, and you're going to burn in hell
Yeah,
because you're worthless.
Yeah, because I'm a Christian, your rights don't matter.
Right.
And
It would be wrong. It would be wrong to do that, even if it was true.
Yeah.
Even if there were a hell.
Right, yeah, exactly. And if there was, what's the point, I mean, come on, if there's this God up there, why would he just choose a certain view to be in this one place and then have all these other people in another horrible place where he can torture them for the rest of eternity.
You know,
Whatever.
it's all many nonsense.
We're not going to try to explain that to you.
Right.
Don't worry.
Christians are welcome to try.
Yeah, but it's interesting that, Paul, getting back to your point, you constantly hear, whining about, peer pressure in schools among teenagers to do drugs and to have, be sexually promiscuous and to shoot up heroin and to tattoo yourself. All these sort of weird peer pressures that I, remember as a teenager in high school, never really experienced those. But what I did experience peer pressure towards was, my lack of religious belief. That was the only peer pressure I experienced, was the negativity that came my way when it became known that I was not a Christian. Right. And that is happening right now. Apparently, the whole Santa Fe debacle. Evidently, one thing that happened in Santa Fe was that Bibles were being handed out at the school. And when one student declined to take one, that student was shoved up against a locker and pushed around and
that kind of behavior. There are rules in school against students treating one another that way for any reason, and those rules need to be enforced.
And I'm enough of a civil libertarian that in general I think we have to err on the side of allowing people to do things like handing out Bibles in school. But to me, it's a lot like handing out copies of Mein Kampf in school.
But I wasn't responding to the handing out of Bibles. I was responding to physical abuse.
Exactly. Or the threat or the actual physical violence.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
And to pipe in on this, I was an atheist in public school, and I remember all too well being cornered in by the big bullies and who were going to hold me in a room until I confessed that I loved Jesus. There was no way they were going to let me go.
Yeah.
And
because Jesus is such a lovable guy for sending his thugs to hold you in a room.
Exactly.
Hey, that's nothing compared to what happens when you die.
Thanks for that tidbit,
one
Vic.
request. Would you please leave the names of the callers who are on the line there until the call is finished, because else I have a poor memory for names and I forget who I'm talking to. Let's go to Don.
Good morning, guys.
Morning, Don.
Hello, Don.
Hey, I bought that T-shirt last Sunday, and I was in HEB Sunday when I left there, and some gentleman behind me said, your shirt offends me. And I said, why does it offend you? He said, because I'm a Christian and that offends me. And I said, your Christianity offends me. And I said, you're a con man? I said, and you con people out of money? And he said, I'm a preacher. And I said, well, that makes you the biggest con man in line. And he told me, I think you better take it off. And I said, well, I don't think I'll take it off.
He asked you to take off your shirt in public?
Yeah.
Because it offended him?
And I told him, I said, well, why aren't you trying to take it off of me? I said, I'm a little old man. But I said, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And he mumbled to himself a couple of times. And I said, well, you guys are all I said, if you don't believe in Christianity, we'll kill you.
Yeah.
Good grief! How dare he?
Wait, which shirt was this? Was this a top 10
That's the new ones, the ones we showed on the show last week?
Yeah.
Oh, just the one with the Capitol?
Yeah.
Just says Atheist Community Boston.
It just says Atheist Community. I'm wearing it right now.
Not even like the beer is better than Jesus shirt.
Yeah. I'm wearing it right now. This is like the big offensive shirt that is.
Yeah, well, he said that shirt offended him.
Yeah, how dare we say in public, what we think about stuff?
Yeah.
How dare we?
Yeah,
we must all take off our clothes that offend these Christians because
we're second
it's so
class.
important that they be happy all the time.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, if I take my clothes off here, I said, everybody giggle anyway. So I said, please don't. I said, don't get into this conversation with me.
Yeah.
And he said, you people are going to hell. And I said, you might believe that, but I don't believe it because I don't believe there's a hell. I said, I don't believe there's heaven, so I don't believe there's a hell. And he got all upset.
Well, of course he did.
Well, good for you.
Of course he did.
Well, I think he needed that.
Christians are so used to having everything their own way.
Yeah.
They are so used to being unchallenged, everybody falling in line.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We don't believe what you believe. You're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, wait till I wear it today when I'm going to a party.
Yeah.
And all these Christians there, that ought to upset them.
Yeah, well.
What?
Not...
I find it just totally astonishing that they can be offended by a shirt that says Atheist Community of Austin and don't understand that we might be offended by someone telling us we're going to be tortured forever.
But when they run around with the Virgin Mary on their shirt, you know?
Yeah.
That's okay, you know.
Oh yeah.
Or if
whatever they want to do is okay. Whatever anybody else wants to do doesn't, you know.
Right. Excellent example. A few weeks ago, we had a guy trying to tell us that it was okay for the kids to have their prayers before the football games in Santa Fe, Texas.
Yeah.
Right. And when we said, you know, how would you like it if an atheist had their turn at the microphone and said, Christianity is stupid, don't believe it. And he said, well, that would be offensive.
well, it's just like I told him. I said, in other words, you can pray to a spot of ice cream on the concrete. And I said, and you're really intelligent. And I said, give me a break.
All right. Well, be careful wearing your shirt out in public and being belligerent to Christians. They have been known to commit atrocities.
Yeah, well, I know
okay?
they might kill me.
We would hate for something bad to happen to you, but on the other hand, we have every right to express our opinion about things.
Yeah,
We're citizens too.
That's right.
I'm going to wear it today and see what happens.
All right.
Yeah. Not only
Bye-bye,
that,
Don.
I think.
Thanks for calling.
Not only that, I think we have a moral obligation to express our opinion on.
Well,
these
I think
things.
that too.
Yeah.
I think, and I am not in line with many atheists when I say this, because they would love for there to be a rational reason to make Christians just shut the hell up. But I think if Christians believe that they have the right view of things, then it is their civic duty to try to pass that view on to others. I think it makes perfect sense for them to try to do that, but it also makes sense for us to do it.
Yeah. That whenever you see a very common view that is morally reprehensible being stated publicly without being challenged, it's time to speak up.
Shall we go to the next call?
Sure. Why not?
Hello, Paul.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Say, I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you saw in the news that guy Friday marching through, going through the streets of South Austin carrying the cross.
What guy?
Oh, I think I know who.
Oh, the vegetarian guy?
No?
Are you talking about the guy who drags a very big cross?
Yeah, it's
it has training wheels on it. That's cheating.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is that he's going out on our public streets, you know, and I don't know if there's police involved, like to have to, you know, direct traffic or.
I don't know about that. Well, you know, there's no law in America against being an idiot who wants to make a public spectacle of himself.
Was he actually nailed?
No, they do that in the
cop out. There are people in Jakarta or somewhere that actually have themselves nailed to crosses to celebrate that.
Yeah.
You know, you got it.
In the autumn years of our life, all I can say is, go ahead, be crucified. See if I can.
So there's really nothing wrong with that if somebody wants to, you know, go on our public street.
Sure.
Well,
knock yourself out.
Yeah, it's it's his freedom of speech. If he wants to express himself that way, he can do it, and we can laugh at him.
And people who make traffic inconveniences up to a point, that's something we tolerate.
The guy I was talking about is last week we had Shannon Burke as our guest on the show, and I had not been a regular listener to Shannon's show, but I am now, and he was talking a couple of days ago about these vegetarians who were protesting at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse downtown, and one of them was dressed as Jesus and like carrying a sign or something that basically said, Jesus was a vegetarian, you should be too if you want to be a good person. And it's just amazing. Who cares what anybody's imaginary friend eats? Who cares?
Well, they do, the people who have the imaginary friend.
I am happy to listen to any rational arguments that vegetarians care to offer.
And I think there are some.
Perfectly happy.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start invoking giant space pixies that tell you not to eat animals, particularly when you're talking about giant space pixies referred to in the Bible, where the animals are created to serve mankind.
Well, wait a minute. Also, remember
to mankind.
Remember what the metaphorical basis of this religion is.
Yeah.
He's the Lamb of God.
Yeah.
That we sacrifice.
Right.
Yeah. that basically this religion is at its root based on animal sacrifice.
It was amazing the way the vegetarian guy, he interviewed one of the vegetarians who tried to spin that by saying, oh, well, that would be the final sacrifice, and there wouldn't have to be any more animal sacrifices after Jesus, and that's why
and so why were there animal sacrifices before? I sort of agree that maybe this is progress, that we get to off one guy, and then we get to stop killing all
there
the
were
animals.
animal sacrifices before, Paul, because this eternal, unchanging God changed his mind.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Okay.
And
what's weird to me though about the whole thing is the quasi cannibalism of communion in the first place, when the wine and the cracker are supposed to become, they're supposed to morph themselves into Jesus's flesh and blood, and you're supposed to eat this.
Right.
I mean,
that's right. You're eating Jesus' flesh when you take communion.
And this is like not repugnant to people. When I mean.
So basically, it's a religion that has at its core a bunch of things about sacrifice of the innocent for the guilty.
Right.
And somehow that's supposed to make it possible for us to be forgiven our sins. Which, if someone could explain that to me, please call in.
Okay.
Maybe we got some Christians on.
Yeah.
And then there's ritual cannibalism. And if you see any other cult where people do that sort of thing, that they have all this vocabulary about sacrifice and cannibalism and so on, you'd think they were a bunch of loons.
I think somebody been sipping on the holy water.
Thanks for your call.
Yeah.
You bet. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
And besides, that was Paul. That was Paul. Thank you, Paul. And besides, as far as the vegetarian argument is supposed, it goes, hey, look, if you're not supposed to eat animals, why are they made of meat? So.
All right, now we're going to get angry vegetarians calling. I'm not nothing against vegetarians, but come on, guys. Jesus is not a reason not to eat meat.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see. Steve.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Steve.
Morning.
I was curious, have you considered showing reruns on primetime?
Reruns on
we have.
As a matter of fact, we have some tapes that do get shown in various time slots, but we don't have a scheduled time during which reruns are shown. This TV committee meeting that I announced at the beginning of the show, that is for the purpose of discussing having a second show of some kind.
No.
So we'll keep you up to date.
Yeah, I did have a comment. Christians talk about how their God loves you more than your parents love you. Now, my question to them is, would your parents burn you for trillions and trillions of years for going out and partying and not doing what they want you to do? No way, of course.
Yeah, and even looking at it the way that Christians actually believe it, right? Okay, there's a dad, and he's got a bunch of sons, and he picks this one son and says, I've been putting all your other sons in this horrible place, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to horribly torture you, and so that some of them can get out of that horrible place. It doesn't make any kind of sense.
Yeah,
it's completely stupid.
It's
Christianity is completely stupid.
Yeah.
That's in case anybody didn't realize that was my opinion.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I think they're just extremely misinformed. Maybe most of them are just haven't read the things that are in the Bible. They just go by what they hear. Extremely brainwashed. It's we were talking about all the killing in the Bible last week.
Yeah.
And our good buddy Moses, Charleston Heston, played the part in the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was aware when he took that part of all.
Well, what is Charlton Heston president of right now?
No telling.
NRA.
National Rifle Association.
Yeah.
By the way,
Charleston Heston may not actually care.
Yeah. Although like last week I said, I have a sneaking suspicion that most Christians probably know what they know about that Old Testament myth more so from seeing that film than from actually reading the book of Exodus. But
like most of them don't realize that what most people think are the Ten Commandments are not the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, there are two or three actually.
Right. This is bizarre. You'd think Christians would be the people who would be taking their religion seriously. Yeah. We take the claims of Christianity more seriously than most Christians do. And that's why we know it's a load of hogwash.
A minor comment on the death toll.
Yeah.
So last week you were reading through the lists of millions of people that were killed by the good guys in the Bible.
Yep.
And one of them was Elisha and the 42 children who were ripped apart by a couple of bears.
Getting that straight.
Right.
It was 42 children killed by 2 bears.
Right.
That's right.
I got it straight now.
But do you know what precipitated this?
Yes,
they called
They made fun of his bald head.
Right, they made fun of his being
Made
bald.
fun of him being bald.
So a
Right.
bunch of kids taunted this old bald guy, and since you're not supposed to taunt a prophet of God, two bears came out of the woods and tore 42 children limb from limb.
I'm sorry, that was never good.
Yeah.
That is not, it is completely nonsensical to claim
Yeah.
that this eternal God, who is unchanging, thought that that was good
Right.
back then, and doesn't think that it's good now.
Yeah.
And then
Either it was never good, or it's always good, and it's obviously not good now.
And then there was Elijah,
Do the math.
who slew 450 priests for believing differently. Now, imagine how we'd feel if, some Catholic priest killed 450 rabbis. Or, some rabbi killed 450 Catholic priests.
It's deranged, man.
This is not good.
It's deranged. And I'm sorry, go on.
All of Deuteronomy is Moses speaking. And if I may, real quickly here, in Deuteronomy 2:33, and here's Moses talking. And the Lord our God delivered him before us, and we smote him and his sons and all his people. And we took all his cities at that time, and utterly destroyed the men, the women, and the little ones of every city. We left none to remain.
Yeah.
And on down at 3:6 it says, and this is Moses throughout the whole Deuteronomy. There's much more than this, but I won't get into it. And we utterly destroyed them. This is other cities now. And we utterly destroyed them, as we did unto something such, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. Simply amazing that. Can you imagine in the Ten Commandments movie them having Moses going around hacking up babies and stuff? I mean, how ridiculous. I mean, that's pretty morbid and all, but if you believe what's in the Bible, then that is what happened. There just is no other way around it.
I have a suspicion. You know how it's there's this thing that happens to people who are held captive, where they start to identify with their captors and
Stockholm syndrome.
The Stockholm syndrome. I think that some of that must be going on with Christians. That they're living in a world where they think there's this cosmic, malicious, murdering tyrant, and rather than holding their ground and saying that's just wrong, they say, oh, then he's like in charge and he must be right and we must do what he says. But also, I just want to point out, in case we have any Christians watching right now who think we're picking on Christianity, I would just like to add, all other religions are completely stupid too.
So, just to make sure that's clear.
Who had...
And in honor of Passover, I'd sort of like to pick on the Jews a little bit.
Okay. Well, it's just fascinating to me also how, whenever you bring these Old Testament atrocities up, Christians, and especially the ones who claim to be fundamentalists, and one of the tenets of being a fundamentalist is the inerrancy doctrine of the Bible, but what they immediately say is, oh, well, that's just the Old Testament. Like, it doesn't apply.
It's not errant.
Yeah,
it doesn't
apply anymore.
It doesn't matter because we say it doesn't matter.
So it's like, so people who subscribe to the inerrancy doctrine of the Bible are saying that the Old Testament's a pack of lies. What's going on here? They just, it's selective, it's interpretation, we pick the parts of the Bible that are nicey nice for us, we ignore the parts that are nasty, we shove them under the rug, and we go on with it. And we claim to be the paragons of all morality everywhere.
Yeah, but they bring those unpleasant parts back out again when it suits them too. When it's necessary to justify killing homosexuals.
Yeah.
They're happy to turn back to Leviticus.
Yeah, sure.
Say, I know you've given me a lot of time here. If I may read one other thing.
Absolutely.
It's Deuteronomy 20.
Must we read the Bible on the air? We all know it's a load of crap.
And when the Lord thy God hath delivered it into thy hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. These are the cities where they're actually war.
Right, actually Joshua is worse.
The ones where they're going in.
The book of Joshua is spectacular.
For inheritance reasons, it says many, many times that they just kill everyone, and there's scriptures to support that. But the ones that they're warring against,
and God tells them to.
It's deranged.
And they go, okay.
Yeah, it's deranged. It is absolutely deranged.
But the ones that they're doing that with, the taking over, it says smite every male, and then seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her. This is Moses now. And seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and hast a desire unto her, and thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails. And then paraphrasing here, give her a month to grieve her mother and father, and thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou have no longer delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her, or sell her for merchandise, because thou hast humbled her. Now, if anyone,
So that's okay then.
Holy mackerel.
if anyone's supposed to believe,
Whatever ever happened to not coveting your neighbor's wife?
yeah, if anyone's supposed to,
Whatever happened to that?
Well, you know,
Non-Hebrews didn't count as neighbors.
that's right.
All right. Okay. Thanks for your call.
all right, can I say one more thing? If,
Sure.
As long as it's not a Bible verse, we've had overload.
No
Come on.
Bible verses, but if
There's a
anyone-
zillion Christian shows where they can read the Bible on the air.
If anyone is supposed to believe that these women actually, it's their fantasy to have these warring men come in and whack to death all their babies and their sons and fathers and grandfathers and all that, and then take them for themselves and shave their head. If anyone out there believes that, then they're unquestionably one of the stupidest people on this planet. Well, that only leaves one thing. Unless they're that only leaves one other thing, and that Moses and his men were
Evil.
mass rapists. There can be no other way it can be put.
Yeah.
And that was the least of it. The raping, looting, and pillaging, well, that's not nearly as important as the genocide, the mass murder.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate it. You've given me a lot of time here.
All right.
Thank you very much. Have a good show.
Yeah, we enjoyed
Thanks
your
for
call.
Steve.
Yeah, it's a death religion.
I think we need a separate show, an atheist Bible study. Or
All right.
You can host that one,
Decide
Arlo.
that's what you want. I'm not being on that
hey,
show.
those other Christian shows don't read
I am
the
so
same
sick
verses.
of this stupid book. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Jacob.
Hey, how's it going, you guys?
Good.
It's fine.
Jacob, how are you?
Hey, pretty good. I'm a Christian, but church hasn't started yet.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we won't judge you.
Oh, please don't.
What can we do for
Not
you?
about that.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I just wanted to say that. Sorry, I have a sore throat. That I think a lot of the time when Christians are offended, it's probably because they're worried about, well, kind of like the same thing you guys are worried about, like legislation that goes against the constitutional right for freedom of religion and freedom of free speech and things like that. So, Christians, I'm not offended by your show because I try to look at things objectively. And I want to commend you guys for looking at things objectively as far as your political stances and everything like that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. And
Well,
we know. I'm
it
sorry,
seems
Jim.
to me Oh, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say we recognize that not all Christians are the ones out there stumping and thumping about let's do away with separation of church and state, do away with the Constitution.
right, praise God that.
Yeah, and let's have state-sponsored religions and shut everyone else out. We know that it's only a small segment and the most vocal fundamentalist segment of that. Most mainstream Christians, support a lack of government interference in religion, whether you choose to believe or not. We recognize that.
Yeah, and most Christians recognize that the separation of church and state is not there, as fundamentalists would have you believe. It is not there for the purpose of promoting atheism in schools.
Right.
Merely not talking about God is not atheism. Atheism is the kind of stuff we talk about, which you also won't find in schools.
Right.
Okay?
And you shouldn't.
The separation of church and state is not there to protect, specifically to protect atheists from Christians or to promote atheism. It's there to protect different sects of Christians from each other.
Right, exactly.
And you people, when you're driving down the road and you see some group of fundies with signs saying, we want prayer back in school, you had damn well better be offended and care if you are not a fundamentalist yourself. Because they don't want prayers that you would agree with said in schools. Right. They don't want the state indoctrinating children in your branch of Christianity. They want the government indoctrinating children in their branch of Christianity.
Another reason for the separation of church and state is that the Founding Fathers saw what happened to the Anglican Church and what had happened before that to the Catholic Church when earthly secular authority got all intertwined with religious authority, and how corrupting that was, that the Catholic Church was so corrupt for so long. And then the Anglican Church got to be so corrupt for so long, because mixing government money and religion tends to be very damaging to both. So the separation of church and state in America is largely to keep government money out of religious hands to avoid political corruption with the Falwells and the Ralph Reeds. Mm-hmm. And this is a really great reason why a whole lot of Christians and a whole lot of Jews in this country really do not want the Falwells and the Ralph Reeds, getting government money to go through religious social services or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And it's for the same reason why I would disagree with some members in the atheist and freethinker community about the whole issue of taxing churches. There are some atheists who are out there going, tax the churches, and I strongly disagree with that position. Because if you think the religious right wields too much political power now, just start taxing them. Because when you start taxing them, they will be able to go right to their congressman and say, okay, our church pays taxes, so here's a list of our parishioners, here's a list of the public schools their children attend.
Right.
We demand, as a tax-paying entity, our specific religion prayers in that school.
And they'll
I don't
be
think
able
it's
to
so
distribute
dangerous.
their voter guides,
And they'll
their
be
biased voter guides, which they
Yeah.
can't do now. They've been stopped from doing that now by the threat of losing their tax-exempt status.
Mhm.
They'll be able to do that. You'll have church organizations will just become.
No. Now it's true that there's a lot of abuse of that by some of the fundamentalist organizations who try to front businesses underneath their tax-exempt status. But still, the law, I think, should remain, separation of church and state, I think, includes tax-exempt status for all churches, and it has to. Because, it will just give them the political power that they lust after right now. It will just hand it to them on a platter.
That's a really interesting point, and we'll probably get a lot of riled up atheists calling.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying that that's not a defense of churches. I'm just saying that the reality of it is, you start taxing them, that will give them the political clout to demand the things that they're demanding now, and they will actually now have a leg to stand on to make those demands. Right now, they don't have that leg to stand on, because when you say we want prayer in school right now, you can point to separation of church and state. But if you're taxing them, then they will just say, but separation of church and state, we can't have prayers? Well, we're taxpayers. Our church is paying taxes. Why can't we have what we want? Like this business, or like this secular organization, or like this or like that. They're getting all of their, requests filled. Why can't we? We're taxpayers. So keep them tax-free, and that'll keep them out of your schools and out of your lives.
Right. So. Yeah, the only thing is, I went to visit my old high school, and I don't know, I'm kind of wary of things going the other way. Like I saw in my high school, like there was these posters up with all kinds of astrology stuff, and it wasn't just the constellations, but it was that step further that you can take with astrology, where you say, well, this means that you're going to have this personality and things like that. And so, I can.
And that's completely stupid too.
Yeah. Can I ask you, was this just like a student club that had a flyer up, or could you tell if it was like a?
I'm not sure whether it was.
Because it's sort of like, once again, if that's a thing where a bunch of students want to just have their own little astrology club, just like having a chess club or a D&D club or a intramural thing, then
or a Bible club.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the little rally around and hold hands around the flag and pray thing after hours or before hours. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So that's.
But I would not want to see astrology classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't want to see.
We barely got science classes now.
I know. That would just bring the whole snowball rolling downhill. So.
Yeah.
All right.
But
thanks for your call, Jacob.
No problem.
And have a good time at church.
Thanks a lot.
Say hi to everybody for us.
Yes. Yeah.
Say hi to everybody for us is what we said. Okay. Did anybody got any closing comments for that, or should we move on to?
No, only Dennis? That we enjoy hearing from nice guys like him.
Yeah, there's no. Yes. Yeah. Christianity may be completely stupid, but not everybody who's a Christian is.
Yeah.
And for them, we think there's some hope. Yeah. I wanted to respond to your point about taxation, though.
Please do.
I think what annoys most atheists about the tax-exempt status is not the mere financial benefit that churches get, but just that it is part of a pervasive attitude that churches and religiosity deserves some special status. That it deserves things like...
It's not just a voluntary thing you can do.
Us not wearing atheist t-shirts, right? That it's somehow privileged. And that's the privilege that people are concerned about. And I'm not at all certain that if those privileges went away, we would have the kinds of political problems with religion that we're having now.
I can see, yeah.
So,
I see where you come from.
It's debatable, but let's not have that debate now.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I just don't think it's worth risking
run and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, well, all right
let's go to Dennis.
Hi, fellas.
Morning, Dennis.
Thanks for my call. You guys just happened to have hit on exactly the topic that I was thinking about the most, and that is taxation. And I'm sorry I don't know you guys' names, but you in the middle. Yeah, John, is that what you said?
Jeff.
Martin.
Jeff, you nailed it on the head. The special dispensation, as they like to put it, tax-exempt status, gives them a privilege. It's not like separation. It's not just separate but equal. It's special.
Yeah,
I'd like tax-exempt status. You know, I have my own religion. It has nothing to do with theirs. I want tax-exempt status too.
Yeah. Do you worship a supreme being?
I beg your pardon?
Do you worship a supreme being?
I don't want to go into that.
Well, okay. The only reason I ask, it's not because I care, because I don't care.
Yeah.
But in the state of Texas, if you don't worship a supreme being, you are not a church and therefore can't be tax exempt. And the Buddhists have run afoul of that particular problem. I think that they got away with it because the state didn't want to look like a bunch of complete morons.
Yeah.
I think that there was a Buddhist church going in Austin. My understanding is that they got their tax-exempt status eventually after a lot of wrangling with the government.
Well, I think we all ought to be tax-exempt.
Well, yeah.
All of us.
Oh, I'm all over that. Yeah.
Taxes. No taxes.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm not for that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, realistically, I mean, it wouldn't work that way. But boy, yeah, it would sure be nice.
Yeah. Moving right along, I have a couple of other comments I'd like to make. First of all, I admire you guys for taking such a dangerous position. This is the Bible Belt. Anyway, I admire that. So good for you. Keep up the good work. The other thing I'd like to say is that I personally have had a great deal of experience with organized religion. Beginning with being summarily dumped into a Catholic orphanage when I was at the tender age of about 5.
Ow.
Lived there for several years, had atrocities committed on me and my peers that would be considered criminal by today's standards, but because it was sheltered behind that big iron fence and those big brick walls out of view of the general public, and of course sanctioned by religion. You know, we're going to beat Satan out of this
Did you see our show last week?
I beg your pardon?
Did you watch this show last week?
I did not. I don't often get a chance to watch you guys, but occasionally my Sunday mornings allow for coffee and company. And
Martin, wasn't it last week that you read about the George Bush connection?
Yes,
to these,
the Bible school in the Baptist school in Corpus Christi, where the guy has, the pastor runs Bible discipline camps, which are these things that are set off in really remote areas that you have to like fly helicopters to get to, and he has unruly teenagers are sort of imprisoned in these things basically.
Boot camp thing?
Yeah, well, it's apparently even worse than that. And they have, and like law enforcement agencies around the country have raided these places and liberated these kids, and it's like they're like these prison camps, and these kids come out and they have, bleeding welts on the buttocks from their beatings.
Well,
because our glorious governor, Shrub Jr., because he has pushed through this whole thing enabling faith-based organizations to administer social programs and get state funds for it. These places, these horrific camps, these horrific concentration camps for kids run by Christians are getting state funds.
Yeah.
Well, where's your
insane?
separation?
I'm sorry?
Where is the separation?
Yeah, you're right. It's abuse. I mean,
out the window.
Okay.
There's no separation of church and state when it doesn't suit them. There is separation of church and state when it does.
Exactly. And
Thank you, Arlo.
That was fun. Will continue until morale improves.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for your call.
Well, wait a minute. I would like to just touch on one last thing before you dump me, okay?
Okay.
Truly, Christianity is the prevailing religion in this country, but I want to tell you that you guys need to focus a little more attention on the power of Catholicism, which of course originates in Rome, the power of Jewry, which originates in Israel, and certainly the power of the Muslim religion, which has absolutely nobody's interest except their own, just like all the rest of them. These are very self-centered, self-oriented political organizations, and they always have been, and they have always been in a struggle for power, and they have always used individuals, working class, lowly ditch diggers like the rest of us, who are essentially just used and bled, and we're all cannon fodder for their own power struggle. And if you guys would give a little more focus to the politicism of these religious organizations, I think we might cut a little closer to the bone. This is not just mythology and the space pixies you were talking about. There's something much deeper here.
Yeah. Well, if everybody knew that all this religion was a load of crap, they wouldn't be able to manipulate people like you say they're doing. So, I mean, I try to focus on what I think is the issue, which is that it's all nonsense, and that would have the effect you're looking for, I think, if
well, the
if people looked at it that way.
The mythology of all of it is very serious indeed, but truly, I mean, there are people that are dying even now. I mean, no matter what we thought about the Inquisition, there are millions of people that die every day in this power struggle between these three main religions in the...
Oh yeah, we recognize that, and it's it's just one more black mark on religion's report card worldwide.
Thanks for calling,
a lot, fellas. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Call us again sometime.
And let's go to Andy.
I believe in miracles.
Yeah,
that's our longtime one kook that calls us to sing his little thing.
Yeah, and
all right. What else we got?
If he were good, we'd keep him on. I mean, you could use a little music on the show, but
we got to get a better classic.
Take some voice lessons. Take some voice lessons and call us back.
Yeah, not terribly creative. All right. We're waiting for some more calls to come in. The number is area code 512-472-2255. Please, if you're watching our show from far away and need to call long distance, go ahead and do that. Just tell the call screener that you're calling from far away, and we will bump you to the top of the list.
Yeah. I see you have some flashcards, Jeff.
Oh, these are old flashcards. I prepared these for a debate that I participated in that was between the University Skeptical Society and
Robert Coons and his funds.
Robert Coons and his group, which are called, I forget. But I guess I could go through a couple of these.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
These are common things that Christians like to say and the appropriate response to them.
The fallacies that they...
Let's go with, let's see. I guess we'll just start with the first one. Non-believers are amoral. I know this is one of your favorite topics.
Oh, yeah.
If you see the word moral as meaning obeying God's laws, then yes, non-believers are amoral. However, if you see it as meaning a distinction between what's right and what's wrong, between what is acceptable and unacceptable in society, then non-believers are as moral as anyone else. Similarly, compassion, love, the urge to care, etc. are not the preserve of the religious. They are innate human characteristics.
Right. And what sort of morality is it that is simply based upon blind obedience to commands?
That is such a good point. I don't understand. There's this whole incredibly throwback, primitive view that somehow the biggest, meanest tyrant around deserves to be in charge and have everybody kowtow to it. I just don't understand where that comes from.
Yeah.
If you mean I respect my superiors no matter who they are, and I obey orders blindly and unquestioningly, yes, I do.
And another thing that is just not, I'm sorry, just right before you go to our
Ed,
caller,
we'll get to you in just a second.
Is, just wanted to illustrate this one point, this whole idea that a being who would torture you for all eternity is someone whom you're supposed to get morality from in the first place. I posed this question to I had a woman that I was talking to a couple years ago about this issue when she was talking about how God is love and God is, and then I asked her, does she believe in hell? And she's like, well, yes, I do, but God created hell for the people who choose to go there. And then I went off on that for a few minutes, but then I just tried to bring it to hit her straight where it, close to home on it. I said, okay, do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a husband? She's like, well, yeah, I have a boyfriend. I'll say, well, let me just hit you with this hypothetical. Let's say a woman has a husband or a male partner. And he says to her, sweetheart, I love you with all my heart. I love you more than life itself. But if you ever leave me, so help me, I'll kill you. Now, would you say, or if I ever see you talking to another man, I will break your neck? Okay. Right. Would you say that would be a good man that she should stay with and love and be married to for all eternity? Or is that a bad guy that she needs to get the hell away from as fast as possible?
Exactly.
And she said, well, should she dump him? He said, well, yeah, she should dump him. And said, okay, so this God who says, I love you, I am love, I want to reach out to you, but if you choose not to worship me, I'm going to torture you for eternity. And then
But
she
you gotta
tried-
be my bitch.
Yeah, that's right. You gotta, and she stambled, and it's just weird. I mean, and
Right. I find this just absolutely staggering and astonishing.
Yeah.
That people can, in fact, say that you should love this God who will torture you if you don't.
Right. Now,
And when I was a child, I went through a serious trauma about this, where I realized I couldn't love a God if that was true. And this was back when I actually believed this stuff. I was raised Catholic. And I thought I was actually going to go to hell because I couldn't possibly love a God who would send me to hell if I didn't love him. And I just sort of felt like I was cornered. There's no way I could, I actually did believe God was real at that point and that he really was like that. And I find it just astonishing that people can believe in such a being and believe that he's good.
how old were you at this time?
I was in first grade, basically, first and second grade.
My opinion is to fill a child's head with something like that that's child abuse.
Right.
That's child abuse.
This is a form of mental abuse to
Child
tell
abuse.
kids, oh, you got to love something you couldn't possibly love if you had any shred of moral dignity and self-respect.
Okay, 5 minutes, 2 callers.
Tom,
Ed.
Excuse me, Ed.
Yeah, hey, I called earlier and I had meant to ask you something.
All right.
Quick. Can you say when the radio show is and what channel it is?
The radio.
Shannon
You mean
Burks.
Shannon Burks?
Yeah.
We, in fact, cannot do that. I don't think we're allowed to. That would be too close to promoting his show.
Okay. Is it on
It's a local radio show. If you look around, there's websites where they'll give you information on it. That's just community service, right? Can't we answer this question?
Well, yeah, he was on the air last week and he said it. It's KJFK.
KJFK
2 to 5.
2 to 5.
Yeah.
KJFK 2 to 5.
Yeah. But we're not promoting the show. We're answering your question.
Right. Okay. Well, I thought maybe it might be on y'all's website or something. Okay. And
No, he's not. He is not officially affiliated with this show or with the Atheist group or anything like that.
I see. And the other thing is I have a friend that apparently there was a banner sighting on Mopac. I just wondered if is Mark Weaver back, or have you heard anything about that?
A banner?
A banner. It was sort of a bash banner from religious right hanging over the. You know how they used to do those banners that would hang over the overpasses, over the highways? I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Tape bags and.
I don't know. We know nothing about it.
I didn't see it. So.
All right. Thanks for your call.
Okay. Bye.
That was
Ed. And we're on to Tom.
Gentlemen.
Tom.
Hello.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I thought I'd call in and let any Christians out there know, actually any Jews for that matter too, the origin of the word amen and omen or amen. Do you guys know that one?
Please fill us in.
Okay. Well, it's actually when everybody today is ending their prayers with amen or amen. Amen was actually the great creator god of the Egyptians.
As in Tutankhamun.
Tutankhamun, yes, exactly. And of course, there's some false etymologies in the dictionary. They will tell you it is Hebrew, but it's and omen. The word omen comes from amen, but it's actually older than Hebrew because if you remember from your Bible studies, the Hebrews spent a little time in Egypt, and that's where they got
Even though there's no historical evidence that ever actually happened.
There is a tiny bit. There is apparently, not from the Egyptian point of view, with the exception of there is one carving on one wall, and it looks like there are some Jews. But as far as the Egyptians are
How could you tell?
Well, I don't know, but my reading there was very fragmentary evidence of actual.
Certainly not the big important deal like it's made out.
Well, it certainly wasn't to the Egyptians because they didn't make any record of when the Jews, quote unquote, left.
Right.
Yeah. And further along that subject, when the Jews were finally, quote unquote, allowed to leave Babylon, their enslavement, many more Jews actually stayed in Babylon than left.
Yeah.
This is the period when the Jews...
There is evidence of the Babylonian
And one of the
captivity.
things that really amazes me about Christianity is how they steal from so many other religions.
Well, now to be fair, all religions do that, and they've always done that.
All right, fine, but they should fess up about it.
Yeah.
Well, they don't.
When
But if they don't
they should
know,
fess up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not really one of our beliefs. What are our real beliefs?"
Well, early
You gotta remember it's show business, and show business is largely about stealing other people's riffs.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought I'd give a real world religious lesson today and let everybody know that the God they're actually praying to is the God Amun.
Yeah.
And, you know, his son, they conflated the two gods, Amun-Ra. Then that was the sun god. Ra was the sun god.
Well, wasn't early Judaism was polytheistic, wasn't it?
Oh, sure it was.
Yeah, it was. Yahweh was a storm god, and Eve was like some sort of mother goddess.
But Yahweh.
Elohim, Yahweh, they were different.
Elohim is one of the words for God in the Old Testament.
Okay.
Fragments that come from a particular scripture that got woven together.
Right.
And Elohim is plural.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks for Paul. We're out of time.
One more thing, guys.
I'm sorry, but we really have no more time. We're
All
going
righty.
to say goodbye to Paul.
Call us next week, Tom.
Call next week and we'll talk some more.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Okay.
That was interesting.
That's the end of the show.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all for watching once again. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks, Paul.
Sure.
For sitting in as guest today. Always a pleasure. And there's our fine credits.
Yeah.
Christians,
We don't hate you.
we just think you're wrong.
Happy Dead Bunny Day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You know you stole the
Love.
pollination of another religion, too.
Here's our love. We
Bye-bye.
love you.